thank you everybody for taking time out of your day to spend with us so we can give you some information about some of the cool ILINX Capture extensibility features. I have a software development background, so this topic is really exciting to me, and I hope through this presentation you'll be able to catch some of that, and you'll start to envision how you could use some of these capabilities in your organization to really streamline some of your business processes or your capture processes, your document onboarding tasks. So we'll go through. This is just a quick agenda here. We'll start with a very high-level capture recap, and this is just for those of you who didn't catch the previous capture webinar, just to kind of give you some high-level overview information. A little bit of high-level architecture as well. Then we'll dive into some of the powerful point-and-click capabilities that are built into ILINX Capture. These are things like barcode processing, database lookups, field validation, and a lot of the flexible security that's built in. Now, a lot of other products can do these things, but they require custom coding. In this section, we'll just really focus on the point-and-click capabilities right out of the box with ILINX that allow you to do these things. The second section is for maybe more brave folks on the call today. We'll dive into some of the scripting environment, and we'll show you some of the options that you have available, how customizations are applied and delivered throughout your system, and what types of capture events you can respond to and extend. And then, as Kim mentioned, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. Now, we want to be upfront with everybody, make sure everybody's all on the same page today. We are showing some features that are in varying states of completeness. So some of this stuff may change just a little bit before we actually release this in the next version of ILINX Capture. So let's dive into some capture recap here. Now, when you think about capturing content, the digitization of paper and that whole process and how it works throughout your organization, I'm sure that your requirements for capturing content are going to vary group to group. You're going to have some back office workers that are working with very high-speed production level scanners to capture very, very large volumes of content and get that into the business process. Some of your workforce will contribute very infrequently and just ad hoc basis want to capture a document, maybe drag some content off their desktop into Capture, or even onboard some content directly from within Outlook just by clicking a button. And all of this information is going to pour into some business processes. And so improving those business processes, getting that information to the right people, to the right systems in your organization, so that they can perform the downstream operations on that content, that's critical. And ILINX Capture can handle all of these challenges. But today we're going to look at how you can extend the ILINX Capture client so that you can engage external business logic and information to go even further. Now, in terms of capture and workflow solution topologies, many of our customers use Capture for a very traditional, what we call centralized scanning solution. In this case, paper shows up at a central location. Maybe it's HQ, maybe it's a shared service center, where it is scanned and captured and then routed throughout the organization for further operations like maybe providing index, metadata values, approvals, collaboration, or whatever the business processes demand. Some of our customers prefer a distributed capture setup, and here the paper arrives at remote locations and is captured remotely and then routed from there either back to a central processing group or possibly even other distributed resources at a different branch. And of course, you don't have to pick one or the other. You can combine the two approaches, whatever you need to meet your business requirements. And today we're all too aware that these formats for content and the sources for digital content are expanding every year. And unexpected content like Twitter feeds and instant messages and text are starting to find their way into the enterprise. Now, ILINX Capture has solutions for these growing content types, but more importantly, we have extensibility points to protect for tomorrow's new technologies and new formats and your ever-changing business requirements. So let's talk about the architecture just for a second. ILINX Capture is built on the latest .NET platform. It is a completely browser-based application, and it uses web services over HTTP or secure HTTP to communicate back to the ILINX server. The ILINX server is a web application hosted by Microsoft IIS and is completely supported by a Microsoft SQL Server database. Now, your client extensions are deployed and managed automatically by ILINX Capture, so you don't have to deal with that aspect. We even provide a mechanism that allows your custom extensions to piggyback off our web services layer if you need to perform some custom database interactions. And this eliminates the need for your custom extension to connect directly from your client to your backend database. Okay, now let's talk specifically about some of the point-and-click tailoring options that are available in ILINX Capture. And so in terms of use cases, barcodes are a very common way to perform some automated processing on inbound content, whether it's separation or extracting information. So, what I really want to do is put a big old stack of paper on my scanner and hit go, and when I come back to my workstation, I see my batch already divided up into the individual documents associated with the correct document type, and even the metadata that was available in the barcodes extracted out and applied to the index data on each one of the documents that can be used for later downstream use, either by repurposing or finding the content, or even in a workflow. Or suppose you have a very rich metadata model for some of this content, and you need to apply different security for different groups in your organization and at different times in the document process. ILINX Capture provides very powerful security configurations that allow you to make individual document fields hidden, read-only, or required for specific user groups. And once your batches of documents are in workflow, you can define specific batch and document field level security within each human activity of your workflow. Or maybe you need to leverage information that already exists in a line of business system, an ERP system or a CRM system, and you want to pull that information forward into the capture process. So ILINX Capture allows you to easily do this with some point-and-click tailoring that we'll demonstrate here in just a minute. Now, the benefits of having these tailoring capabilities is that it allows you to fine-tune your content onboarding process. This is going to speed up the flow of captured content into your business, greatly improve the quality and completeness of your content metadata, which is going to not only improve its usability, but its reusability for other parts of your organization. And the security, applying that security, of course, is going to protect your enterprise information, which is paramount, but it also allows you to fine-tune your user experience within the ILINX Capture interface to maximize your user productivity. All right, so let's talk about each one of these use cases separately here. Let's start with barcode separation and extraction. ILINX Capture can separate documents out of a batch based on 16 different types of barcodes, one-dimensional and two-dimensional. It can also look for specific barcodes by position within the document, and also by what the data in the barcode starts with. For instance, if you have a purchase order that's encoded in a barcode within your documents, and you know that all of your purchase orders start with PO or US, you can configure Capture to look for that specific data starting phrase or set of characters, and it will identify documents based on that specific barcode. And of course, once the system identifies the barcode, it will separate out the documents into different document types. Now, you may be using barcodes as just purely separator pages, and so there's an option to discard those. But if it's got other information, like our example will, we're going to keep those in the document as well. So now I've got the document separated. Now I want to extract information. So we can extract based on the same 16 different types of barcodes, 1D and 2D. We can find specific barcodes based on the position in the document, and also based on what the data starts with. And once we've identified the barcode that we're going to extract, we can look into that information and we can do some things with it. If it's, for instance, a list of comma-separated values, we can trim information off the front and the back of that, or look for a specific instance of a piece of information within that delimited set of data. And then once the system has the information, we'll tell it where we want to copy that information into a specific document field. Okay. When you go into the system to configure your security settings for a particular batch profile, the first thing you're going to do is select that from a list, and then you're going to assign either ILINX built-in security groups or Microsoft Active Directory security groups to that specific batch profile. Now once you do this, you'll be able to define security and access to functionality for that specific group. And these are things like whether or not that group can modify the batch profile definition, whether they can access capture reports, whether they can even access capture at all, and what they can do and see within the ILINX Capture user interface. And whether they can access workflow, which queues they can access, and which fields within those queues they can access. So it's a very rich model. When it comes to the documents, you can define which document types are accessible to which groups, and even drill down to the field level to define which fields for this group are hidden, read-only, or required. And again, these security settings are great for managing access to your content, but it's also to enhance and streamline that user experience to maximize the productivity. So they're not encumbered by a lot of dials and switches that they don't really need to do their job. Now, the best way to improve indexing speeds and data quality is to leverage information you already have back in your systems of record. And again, these are systems like your financial systems or CRM or sales system, human resources, etc. And ILINX Capture can do this easily with no coding. So you can define rules that automatically extract information from a barcode. We just talked about that. We can go back and retrieve related information from a database or some other system. And we can automatically populate document index metadata. And we'll demo all this here in just a second. Here's some of the mostly point-and-click areas that I mentioned earlier. ILINX Capture allows you to define regular expressions that can perform validation on individual index fields. Now, regular expressions are, by definition, a scripting language. So it's a language that's been around for, I think, about 100 years or so. And it's used primarily for data format validation. And so this would be things like the familiar 3-to-4 pattern for a social security number, or maybe you've been on a website and they've done some crude validation on your email address where it's expecting something like a name at somewhere.com or .net. So with a regular expression, you're really validating the format of the information and not really the information itself. Down at the bottom, you can see a regular expression that attempts to actually validate the date information. The format is fairly easy to validate, but trying to figure out using a regular expression whether September 31st or February 30th is valid, then it gets pretty complex pretty quickly. So in this particular case, we just recommend using the built-in date field type. Okay, it's time for a demonstration. I want to tell you real quickly what I'm going to show you. 4 things. We're going to start with configuring barcode separation and extraction. Then we're going to configure a database lookup and field population from the database. And then just really quickly, we're going to put in a regular expression, and I'll show you how we would set up a couple of different security permutations. So let me switch over and log into Capture. I'm going to log in as an administrator. And I have pre-configured some pretty empty batch profiles here that we'll be talking about today. So let me just show you what happens. I'm gonna create a new batch. This is my demo barcode sample, and it's really pretty empty at the moment. And let me show you what we're going to use. This let me drag it over here. This is a 16-page TIFF document. So we can scroll through there and we see some barcodes. Okay, so this actually is 4 documents in one. So if I just set a stack of 4-page documents on the scanner, this is what would come into the system. So I'll simulate that by just dragging and dropping that over here. And sure enough, what we see are the 16 individual pages now associated with that batch. Now I could go in here manually and I can right click and I can say I want to create a new document from here, and I could do that all manually, but that's kind of cumbersome, and we can do better because we've got some barcode information to leverage. So let me delete that, and I'm going to go in here and say I want to configure the client-side processing. We've got a couple of options. We're going to get to extensions in the next section, but let's just do the barcodes for now. And I'm going to add a separation action. I mentioned we have 16 different types of barcodes you can choose from, 1D and 2D. I happen to know that these samples are code 39. I can specify a position in the doc. You saw when I just paged through that there were a couple. We're going to define our documents based on the first one. I could, if that was a purchase order or some account code that I knew started with 4 zeros or some specific set of information, I could also find it based on that. But it's just a very simple barcode. And we're going to specify a new document type. I've got a couple here in this batch profile, and we're just going to make it the sample. I could remove that separator page, but as I mentioned, it actually had some information that we want to use later, so I'm not going to remove that page. Okay, so our separation action is defined. Now let's go extract some information from that barcode. So I just happen to know by looking at that document that that first barcode contains a contract number. So as I mentioned in the presentation, we could find the barcode based on what the data starts with. Maybe it's a pipe or a comma separated value, and we could remove the front end and the back end of that information to extract just middle points. But it's just one piece of information, and it happens to be a contract number. So in my sample doc type, I have a contract number. So we're going to extract the first barcode in the document and put the information into the contract number. I also know that in that second barcode, we had the account number. And so I'm going to extract information from the second barcode in that document and put it into my account number field. Okay, so we'll save that. Now, ILINX Capture leverages caching throughout the system, and it does this for a couple of reasons. One is for performance. The other reason is to minimize chatter between, ensuring that the cache is up to date. So this means that I have some information cached. So I'm going to log out and log back into the product to refresh that information that we just changed. So now let's go in and create a batch, and let's do the barcode sample again, the same batch, but with the enhancements that we've just made. And I'm going to grab that same document and drop right here. It's going to think about it for just a second, and already we see something different has happened. We've taken that 16-page document and burst it into 4 individual sample docs. And we've done that by the barcode. And if I go into the metadata information, I can see that we have extracted the account number and the contract number for each one of these. Now we've got a barcode here that was messed up, and I'll show you how we'll fix that in a minute. But we've successfully configured the barcode separation and extraction. And so already we've really streamlined the process of onboarding these particular types of documents. But we can do better. So let me get rid of this batch. I'll go back into the administration, and we're going to edit this batch profile definition. Because in my back-end CRM system, I've got some customer information that I can pull forward into this process to speed this, the indexing process even further. So we're going to do a database lookup. I'm going to edit this sample doc type. And I know that all the information back in my CRM system is keyed based on the specific customer account number. So that's what I'm going to use in my capture process here. I'm just going to edit this. And I'm going to say that this information is going to come from a lookup field. And I'm going to go through this wizard and configure this. When I do, the first page of the wizard allows me to select what data source I'm going to. And you can see there's a number of different options here for MySQL and Oracle. And we're going to pick SQL Server because it's the database that's actually running on my ILINX Capture system. And because it's running locally, I don't have to really know the server name. I can just put a dot. I'll specify my administrative user and test that connection. Great. So I've connected to that backend database. Now I'm going to select a database from which I'm going to pull this information. And it's actually just in a samples table database. And I'll go to the next page. And this is the lookup configuration. One of the really powerful things about this point-and-click configuration here is I have access to different types of data sources. Tables are great, and that's what you'll probably do most of the time, but you can also choose views. And I don't have any defined here in this database. Views are the next level of sophistication. I can combine different tables and pull in information from other sources in a view. But we can also do stored procedures, and this is where it gets really interesting. If you're a talented SQL developer, you can create some very, very sophisticated stored procedures that can go out to other systems, other databases of different types, bring in information together, and really create a very rich source of information to be used in a database lookup. We're going to keep it simple today. We're going to stick with just the tables. Company info is my sample set of information from my CRM system. Now, so I've defined where the data is coming from. Now I want to define how this type of lookup is going to interact with the user, and I have two options. One is I can specify a minimum set of characters to perform what we call a type ahead or look ahead search. So if I left it selected like this, as the user types in the account number, once they type in the third character, we'll go back to the database and we'll present them a list of every account that matches what they've entered, the 3 characters that they've entered. If they enter a 4th character, we'll rerun that search and we'll continue to narrow those results down. Now they can choose at any time from that list which one they're looking for, or maybe they'll get to the single record. But in this case, we know that we're going to be extracting, hopefully, the entire account number from the barcode. So we're not going to really be typing anything in. We really just want to verify that that's the correct account code that's been visually, we'll verify visually that it's been extracted correctly. And when we tab off that field, that's when we want to do our lookup. So it's really about just validating the information once it's completely entered. Now I'm going to cheat just a little bit because I've already got this SQL statement prepared, but this is just standard ANSI SQL. I'm going to paste that into this dialog here, and it's just basically selecting information from my backend database table, and it's going to rename each of those results to be the same column names or the same metadata fields that I have in my document type so that it knows where the information goes once it's returned. So the wizard forces you to test your query, which is a great thing. So I know that I'm going to get 1 account back from this one. Okay, so at this point I have a basic lookup done. I'll click Finish, and I'll save all the changes that we've made to this application. And again, I need to log out and log back in to get that cache refreshed. Now let's go in and we'll create another one of those barcode sample batches. I'm going to grab that same document, drop it in there. And you see we've done the separation. We can go into this first document. Now you'll notice it looks kind of similar, but under the account number we see a line, and this indicates in ILINX Capture that that field is associated with a database lookup. So as an operator, I would typically come in here and I would do a visual confirmation that the account number has been extracted correctly. And when I tab out of that field, we're going to invoke that database lookup that we just created, and it's going to populate contract number, company, contact name, and the service rate. And so now I can quickly go down through each one of these documents. Oh, we got a problem here. We'll come back and fix that. But as I tab, it's going to pull this information from that back-end system forward into my indexing panel. So let's go back here. We've had a problem because this barcode is kind of messed up. So I'm the operator, and so now I guess I'm going to have to resort to manual entry here. So I'm going to type in 10, and if I hit Tab, that will invoke the system to go back and run that query and present me with all the results. I put the next one in, now the results get narrower, and now I see the First Century Bank shares. And I can select that, which also populates the rest of the metadata there. Okay. Okay, so we've got automated separation, extraction, database lookups. Now let's go back in, and I just noticed that I had already configured a field with a regular expression validation. So let's just go take a look real quickly at what that looks like. And I think it was the phone number. I'll edit that phone number definition. Yes. So this is a regular expression, and this is going to, again, it's going to validate the format of the data, not necessarily the data itself. So it's going to make sure that we input a 334 field. So actually, let's just create a new batch because that's already applied. So if I go in and index this, you'll notice that this field has a red ring around it. We were also allowed to put in some helpful information here that gives the user what specific format of information we're looking for. So I can do a 111-222 equals that, and it's not going to validate correctly. So it's going to force me to put in the exact format specified in the regular expression, and then of course I can submit the document at this point. Okay. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay. Let's talk about some client-side scripting and extensions. So we just showed how we can use some of the point-and-click tailoring options that allow you to just use out-of-the-box ILINX Capture features to fine-tune, streamline that onboarding of content. So let's dive a level deeper and look at some of the options that are available if you need to go further and go extend ILINX Capture beyond the out-of-the-box capabilities. So some of the typical use cases for leveraging ILINX Capture client-side scripting are listed here. At a high level, the client-side scripting or extensions allow you to tap into capture events that are happening at the user's workstation. And this allows you to execute specialized business logic. You can reach out to external applications or databases to validate or leverage additional information. You can even call web services anywhere in the world. Or you can display your own custom dialogue that maybe has a very sophisticated user interaction to collect very specialized information. Now we'll cover the data flow in more detail, but at a very high level, it goes like this. The user interacts with the ILINX Capture user interface and generates some type of event. Your event handler is invoked by the ILINX Capture framework, wherein you can gather information from the current batch and call out to an external system for additional information or additional processing. And lastly, you're going to return this information back to Capture in the form of maybe document metadata information. And you can allow or disallow ILINX Capture to continue with the operation. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Now, if you get nauseous or faint at the sight of the code, you may want to avert your eyes for this next section because we're going to dive into some actual code here in just a second. So built into the ILINX Capture administrative user interface is a basic scripting environment. And in this environment, you can create your code, and you can create visualbasic.net or C#. You can compile and fix compilation errors, and you can publish your custom extension. We also provide a Microsoft Visual Studio shell project. And using the shell project, you can develop your own custom extensions using all the familiar Visual Studio tools and features, including my favorites, the Object Browser and IntelliSense. But regardless of where you actually create your custom extension, Capture will take care of the deployment and the updates for you. So to kind of revisit that architecture, the custom extensions are delivered from the ILINX server down to each of your clients. And this includes not only the initial deployment, but anytime you make an update to your custom extension. And I also mentioned that Capture allows you to piggyback on our web services communication layer. So if your custom extension needs to connect with a database, you don't have to do that directly on the client machine. Now you can if you want, and in fact, custom extensions have complete access to the entire .NET framework. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, but just to mention that there are 6 batch-related events that you can register to handle in your custom extension. The on-batch open and on-batch closing events, these are very common events that people tap into frequently. And the on-batch closing and on-batch field exit, and they're kind of identified there with the little traffic light symbol on the left, these handlers return a true or false, which tells the ILINX Capture framework whether or not to continue with the operation. So if you create a custom extension, you're doing some validation, the user inputs something that's just not correct, you can halt the ILINX Capture data flow until the user provides valid data, and then you can, by returning true, allow that process to continue. Similarly, ILINX Capture provides 4 document-related events that you can tap into. On-doc close and on-doc field exit are very common events that people use. And similar to the batch level events, the on-doc field exit allows your extension to interrupt that flow, that interaction with the user, to let them know that something isn't correct about the data that they've input. So peeling back the onion one more layer and looking at the custom extension data flow. First thing you're going to need to do in your custom extension is to enable the specific event handlers that you want to react to. Now you can do one of them or you can do all of them, and to do this you simply mark the enable field as true, and I'll show this in the demo. And then within your custom logic, that's where you add within the function, you add your custom logic. So down below, you see this is the on-doc field exit, and there's just a placeholder there. You add your custom code here. This, again, could be calling out to a web service or talking to a database or soliciting additional information from the user. But you return either a true or false. A true is going to tell the ILINX Capture framework to allow the user to continue, whether they're submitting the batch or tabbing off of that field onto a different field. Or you can return false to tell the ILINX Capture framework to stop the user where they are until they provide some valid information. Now, each event handler receives 3 common objects. The first one, and probably the most important, is the batch instance object. And this includes all of the current batch information, batch fields, current user information, and a ton of useful information. It also receives a couple of helper objects. One of them is the iLogging interface or iLogging object. This allows your custom extension to write directly into ILINX Capture logs. And the database lookup object, and this is the one that I mentioned that you can leverage if you need to talk to a back-end database and you don't want to make those database connections right on the client. Now, document-related events receive a specific document object for the document that triggered the event. So this object contains a collection of the document fields and values and other related document info. The field handlers receive either a batch field object or a document field object, depending on the event. And these objects reference the specific field that generated the event in the indexing panel, along with all the information about that field. Okay, let's do another demonstration here, and I'm going to show you a couple of things. First, I'm going to use the built-in ILINX Capture script editor to call a FedEx tracking web page. We're going to pass it some bogus information. It's not going to come up with a real package tracking information, but you'll get the idea. Secondly, we'll show you a custom extension that has been built from within Visual Studio. And this one accesses the Outlook automation objects to create a task, and I'll show you the task, that includes batch information, and it adds a reminder to follow up in 20 days and sets a due date for 30 days. Okay, so let's switch over to Capture. Actually, let me get rid of this batch. It's not to confuse things. cancel back out to my list of profiles. And I have one called the Demo Package Tracking batch profile. So what we're going to do is configure client-side processing. Now it says configured, but I configured it and then took all the customizations out so we could walk through it. So as I mentioned, the first thing we're going to do is enable the on batch open. So all these are set to false by default, meaning that the system won't invoke any custom code. So I just set this to true, which will indicate to ILINX Capture that I want to handle this event when it occurs. And then again, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I have some code that I wrote earlier this week. And I'm going to come down here to the on batch open stub that's right out of the box for me. And I'm going to paste this custom code. And I'll just show you real quickly what this is going to do. We get the batch information object that comes in. Again, this is probably going to be the object that you interact with most when dealing with the batch. And I'm going to grab the first capture document that's in this batch, and I reference that in that array using a 0, and I've just assigned that to a doc variable. And then from that document, I'm going to find an index field called package ID, and then I'm going to get the value out of that and put it into this variable called tracking ID. Okay, and then I come down. If the tracking ID is empty, I'm going to show a message box saying that the package ID field is empty. If it's not empty, I'm going to use this navigation helper object here, and I'm going to provide a URL. And I know the first part of the URL is going to take me to the FedEx tracking page, and then I'm going to append to that the tracking ID that I pull out of my index information. So now I can validate this extension, and it says that the build succeeded. Now let's say I forgot to put a semicolon after that statement. When I validate this, it's going to show me the error. It's going to say line 56, the specific column. I've got that information over here, so as I click through, I can identify the line and the column that was the error, and I can add that back in, revalidated. So it has some basic compilation error checking, and so you can do some of the debugging in here. I'll show you in just a minute what it looks like in Visual Studio. So we're all validated. This looks good. I'm going to apply this. And again, actually I need to check one thing to make sure that my package field is the correct one. Yes, package ID. We're good. Okay, so I'm going to sign out. I'm going to refresh that cache again, because we applied a client extension. So now I'm going to go create a new batch. This is going to be of the package tracking profile. And it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to grab a document here. Whoops. I guess I need to tell it what type of document that is. So now I'm going to just put a bogus description in here, but I need to put a package ID field in here, and this is, again, this is just made up. And then I'm going to submit this batch. I'll come over here to my workflow, and there's the batch that we just created, the package tracking. So when I click on this, if you remember, in our code, we said that we wanted to handle the on-batch open event. So when I click on this as a user, the system is going to open that batch and fire that event and call my custom code that we added. And if everything works correctly, it's going to extract that bogus package ID that I just typed in, and it's going to launch a browser and point at the FedEx tracking website and pass it that package ID. And again, this is just bogus, so it's not going to find anything. But you get the idea that you can create a custom web service or a custom web page and receive batch information and do some additional processing completely outside of the Capture user interface. Okay, now I mentioned we were going to show Visual Studio. Actually, let me show you what this does first. Go back into Capture. I'm going to create a new batch, and I've coded up a sample in Visual Studio. This is the one that creates an Outlook task and pushes some batch information in and assigns a follow-up, a reminder. So this is just kind of a bogus use case, but it shows how you could very quickly and easily, just a few lines of code, interact with an external system, whether it's on the user's desktop or maybe a back-end line of business system, to tie that whole content onboarding process and with other information and other systems in your organization. So let's see, this is the Outlook task. So I'm just going to grab a doc, doesn't matter which one it is. Okay, I'm going to fill out some bogus information here. Test. Now, in this example, I'll show you the code in just a second. I have handled the on-batch submit. And so when I click the Submit button, it is going to invoke my custom extension that I developed in Visual Studio and uploaded into ILINX Capture, and I'll show you that as well. It's going to create the Outlook task and then tell me that it did that. Okay, so a new Outlook task has been created with the due date and reminder. That's great. Let me show you what that did. Okay, this is one from earlier today I was testing, but this one just came across at 11:47 a.m., which is right now. And let me drag this over here so you can see it. And this includes some information along with the batch confirmation ID, the batch name, total docs, total pages. You could have gone crazy here and put all kinds of batch metadata and document metadata, but I just kind of kept it simple there. Okay, so now let's go over to Visual Studio, and I'll show you the project that was used to create that custom extension. And this is it. This is just one class file. And as you look at this, you'll notice it's the exact same code that is in the ILINX Capture script editor. It's the same blocks of code, the same stub functions that are provided. I've gone in and I've turned on the on-batch closed event handler, set that to true. It's the only one I'm handling at the moment. And I've added my custom code here on the on-batch closed event handler. I'm not going to go through this in any detail. I'm just invoking the Outlook application objects. I'm creating a new task. I'm pulling information from my batch object and pushing it into that task. I'm adding a due date, and I'm adding a reminder, and I'm clicking Save. And again, this is just a simple example. This could have been going out to a CRM system to update account information, customer correspondence. I could have generated a Microsoft Word document, putting all kinds of customer information in it, sending an email automatically, launching it on my client. I mean, you know, hopefully your creative juices are flowing, and you're thinking of all kinds of cool ways that you can extend ILINX Capture. So I'm going to make a quick change here just to prove that we're actually live here. And I'm just going to set the date. Time is on my system is 11:48 a.m. Okay, so I will just rebuild the solution. That's done. Now I'm going to go back into ILINX Capture Admin. We're going to pick this Outlook task profile, configure client-side extensions. I'm going to browse out and grab that new extension, DLL, that I just compiled. Hit Save. Gives me some feedback that it did upload that DLL. Again, I need to sign out to clear all that cache information out. Now we'll go back and create another one of those batches. Just grab any old doc here. The PDF, very nice. And I will submit this. Now what you'll see here is basically the same thing, except there's our time that I just typed in, 11:48 a.m. Hit OK, and we've got a new batch that was just created, actually 11:49 by the time we compiled and uploaded that. So very simple process of making changes to your client-side extensions and getting them put into the system just very easily. Okay, let's go back to our presentation and finish up here real quick. So what we've shown today is a number of options that you can use to extend ILINX Capture, to streamline those indexing operations, to improve data quality, to improve your user experience. You can reach out to external systems to leverage those capabilities, share capture information. And in an upcoming webinar, we'll take a deep dive into the capture workflow capabilities, and we'll show how these same types of extension technologies can be used to create some very powerful business processes. But to wrap up, I'd like to briefly mention several of the other ILINX products that you could use to further enhance and extend these benefits throughout your organization. The ILINX Content Store product's built on the same technology stack as ILINX Capture and provides powerful content management capabilities. ILINX eForms provides electronic forms capabilities to collect input data across a wide variety of devices. It validates that data and delivers it to just about any enterprise system you have. And by the way, ILINX Content Store and ILINX eForms will be featured in an upcoming webinar, so keep your eye out for those announcements. ILINX Integrate, this is a great product. It's almost magical. It allows you to deliver and consume content and data between any two applications with zero coding. ILINX Import automates the consumption of content from a large variety of sources and delivers that content into ILINX Capture or even a third-party capture system. And ILINX Release accepts content from multiple capture systems and delivers that content into ILINX Content Store, FileNet, Oracle, or a number of other third-party content management systems. Now, ImageSource has been implementing enterprise content management solutions for 20 years now across the world to hundreds of customers. And these solutions include software not only just ILINX, but also Oracle and IBM FileNet, Kofax, and other technologies. And using our unique ECM ecosystem methodology, we can help you craft the optimal content management strategy for your organization. And this methodology starts with in-depth interviews of your lines of business folks, your IT groups. We follow that up with a comprehensive analysis to identify lines of business that are underserved by existing content management capabilities. Number three, we work with you to craft the perfect content management strategy, tailor fit for your organization. And lastly, we'll help co-present that final analysis and presentation with you to your management. So whether you're on an end-of-life version of Oracle IPM or you're just getting started with enterprise content management, this proven methodology can absolutely help you define some realistic strategies that are going to drive significant process improvements throughout your organization. And these improvements will deliver measurable cost savings and ultimately competitive advantage for your business. So that's all we have time for right now. I'll turn it back over to Kim for some questions.
Thanks, Randy. So there was a couple of questions that came in today. We'll just take a couple of them because we're getting kind of short on time. So this one said, could you create custom scripts that are unique for each human activity in a batch's workflow? Yes, you absolutely could. And the way you would do that is by interrogating the batch object that comes into any of those event handlers. And in that batch object, it's going to have workflow information. Things like what human activity that batch currently sits in, how long it's been sitting in there, who put it in there, and a bunch of additional information. So by interrogating where that batch is in your workflow, you can tune your custom extension to handle specific human activities. Yeah, absolutely. And then one more. It says, it looks like there's only one custom script for a given batch profile. How could you create handlers for multiple document fields?
Oh, okay, that's a very good question, and you're right. There is one custom script or custom extension per batch profile, and the reason for that is each one of the events that is specific to a document is going to receive one of those document objects, and it's going to be associated with the document that created that event. So whether the user was in the indexing panel and it was tabbed off one of those document fields, your custom extension is going to be handed a document object. And when you get that object, you can interrogate it. It has a ton of information about the document. One of them is the document type. So your custom script will be invoked when that action happens on any document type, but your custom script can define whether it's appropriate to respond or how to respond. If it's document type 1 or document type 2, you code that up in your specific event handler within your custom extension.